Hello. I will address the first question. How did the authors help me think about myself as an interpreter? First, as I read each article, I realized that my perspective can be an important and unique one when I am interpreting something. E begins by looking at the story of Elijah and the widow in the Old Testament through the lens of her own family background, where her mother was a widow. This leads E to imagine about the widows in the Bible, even though the Bible doesn't say much about their situations. E says on page 21, the narratives were usually silent about how women became widows, but we can speculate on the socio-economic conditions that created and oppressed them during this period. In the case of the foreign widow of 1 Kings 17, her husband might have died of illness or malnutrition from the famine. That particular drought lasted 3 years. Although we know that famine can be the result of environmental factors, it is often the result of human political strife, such as war. E was able to take the widow's situation as a starting point, and she connects it to the condition of the nation of war at the time. Because of her concern for the widow's situation in looking at the Bible, her own interpretation was possible. Reading Morrison's text also made me think about the importance of my position as an interpreter. She keeps asking these questions like, who is a foreigner? Where is my home? Are our countries the boundaries? What is family, and how do we view the animals we share the planet with? This allowed me to more try to define my place in contemporary Korean society and studying in the United States. The importance of the individual's position can be seen as one of the similarities between the two authors. Furthermore, both authors suggest that individual situation is not something immutable, absolute, and extreme, but rather one that has many different metrics. For example, uh, in the race in mind section of part one, Morrison discusses the harm of stereotypes of one race by pointing out how the media uses the black mask as a racialized and discriminatory image. She says on pages 37, sorry. My point is that African Americans are still being employed in that way to disappear the white poor and unify our classes and reasons, erasing the real lines of conflict. This parallels E's assertion that everyone has a diverse position. This is because both authors are saying that no single characteristic of an individual can describe the whole person. As E says on page 16, depending on one's social location as a gendered, raced, classed, and etc. individual, one must recognize that she could simultaneously be both oppressor and oppressed, powerful and powerless, because of her different and shifting locations in a matrix of domination. E's emphasis on intersectionality is perhaps where she differs most from Morrison. While both authors agree that we need to take into account the multiple characteristics of individuals, E is more actively engaged than Morrison in utilizing intersectionality. For example, on page 50, Morrison writes, all of this robbery was accomplished by war, which is itself a worth-making industry regardless of victory or defeat. Whereas Morrison sees the origins of wealth accumulation as war or plunder, E attempts to use intersectionality in her interpretation of wealth and poverty, particularly in answering the question, where was the male power of the states in the economics of widowhood? The importance of my own perspective, which I realized while reading the arguments of these two authors, is very encouraging me personally. Especially living in a Korean society where Confucian values teach that modest is a virtue, a very important virtue, and patriarchy and misogyny are prevalent. I consciously or unconsciously have an attitude like my views are not important. I believe that reading their writings and seeing my perspective as unique and worthy will be very helpful in establishing my viewpoint in my doctoral study. Thank you.